Hey there guys, I'm back with another video. It's only been... Oops. Well, I'm back now. And what better way to start the year than by talking about Twitter controversy? I know, it's a great idea. Back in October of 2022, there was a Rhythm Games poll that was picking up steam on Twitter run by the Osu Rhythm Games Club. No, not the game, the university. Yes, this confusion has happened before. And considering that it was a best rhythm game poll, it was going probably about as well as you expected. It was actually drawing quite a lot of attention with the final vote of Beat Saber vs Osu Standard having about 58,000 votes. There was a huge war between the fan bases, some big artists took notice, and in the end, Osu Standard barely squeaked it out. Now, is this a definitive poll? Of course not. The two finalists were the games with the most active communities, and this was basically a popularity contest. Though, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, somewhere in the mix of the vote war and the final results, an interesting opinion was bubbling up here and there. Some people seem to think that Beat Saber isn't a rhythm game. This was cropping up here and there on Twitter during the final votes. So let's answer the question. Is Beat Saber a rhythm game? But first, this video is sponsored by me. I'm producing a lot of content this year, and I'm a one-man show and dedicate a lot of my free time to doing this, so I'm gonna plug my Patreon for like 1 second. Any of the tiers get your name in the outro of my videos. The hyper tier gets you the audio version of the video early, and the another tier gets you access to a video chat where I talk about the videos I'm gonna be making in the upcoming month. I'm working on adding more stuff to it in the future, but that's what I've got for now. I've got lots planned for this year, so I'd really appreciate if you checked it out. Okay, now back to making people mad on the internet. Let's start with a different question, actually. What is a music game? I didn't misspeak or anything. Music game, not rhythm game. I've heard the two terms used interchangeably a lot in the past up to now. Is there a distinction? Wikipedia only keeps a list of music video games, which honestly encapsulates both music and rhythm games. However, on the music video game Wikipedia page, they have a section titled Rhythm Matching Game. This seems to get us closer to the separation, with performing actions on a controller with precision timing as the note is played. Players are generally scored by not only hitting the right control, but how precisely they hit it in time with the music. So Wikipedia helps us along a little here. Rhythm games are a subgenre of music games. Put a different way, all rhythm games are music games, but not all music games are rhythm games. If Beat Saber isn't a rhythm game, then it would have to be a music game, right? Let's also stop for a second and quickly identify what a rhythm game isn't. Specifically, rhythm games are not games requiring you to perform actions in time with music. Why isn't this the definition? Because almost every game would fall under this, and making any separation would be impossible. Everything from Rock Band to Rhythm Heaven would all fall under the same umbrella. The only games we'd have left as music games are those that explicitly use interacting with music in a non-playback fashion. Something like jam sessions would still fall under a music game by this definition, though you could certainly argue that jam sessions is more of a music creation tool. So what definition are we going to go with then? Well, using Wikipedia's article as a basis, for the sake of argument, I'm going to define a rhythm game as a game that issues a judgment for your rhythm. In particular, this judgment is issued on a note-by-note basis. We take the literal phrasing of rhythm games here and translate it to judge's rhythm. To be more specific, I am defining judgment of rhythm as requiring there is feedback other than hit and miss. There has to be some granularity, whether that is intermediary judgments between miss and perfect, or some sort of millisecond-based system indicating how far off the player was, even though these usually have judgments worked in anyways. With that, we can start separating games out into blocks. I was immediately curious. What are the first rhythm and music games? Well, somewhat unsurprisingly, the first rhythm game would be the granddaddy of them all, Parappa the Rapper. At least, I think. From what I can tell, there is an intermediary judgment in Parappa between hit and miss based on the feedback sound you get when you hit a note. The game also continuously judges your rhythm with a sliding judgment throughout the whole song, so I'm gonna count it. That puts the first rhythm game all the way back in 1996, paving the way for Konami's Beatmania to come and lay the foundation for the whole genre going forward from 1997. So what about the first music game? Well, if we're going off the definition we just set up with rhythm games requiring more than a hit and miss state, then I believe the first music game would be VibRibbon. If you don't know about it, VibRibbon is a cute little game made for the PS1 by the same company as Parappa the Rapper, Nana Onshaw. By this definition, this actually gives Nana Onshaw claim to both the first rhythm and music game. In VibRibbon, Vibri walks down a track with obstacles coming toward her, and you are required to press certain inputs when she encounters the obstacle, with the input changing based on what the obstacle is. The game is also notable for allowing use of custom music off a CD to generate levels, though as you'd expect, it's only about as good and with the music as possible by a computer in 1999. The game only has a success or fail judgment for each obstacle, so into the music game bucket it goes. Alright, let's really get into it. Let's separate out some games into groups and make some people mad, shall we? Let's start with rhythm games, since there's a lot we can get out of the way quickly. All of Konami's Arcade Bemani series are rhythm games. Sound Voltex, Guitar Freaks, DDR, etc., all rhythm games. Same with Sega. Chunithm, Mai Mai, Ongeki, all rhythm games. Taito's Groove Coaster is the same, rhythm game. Groove Coaster actually has an interesting mechanic of secret notes that only have a hit or miss judgment called ad-libs, but the rest of the notes have normal judgments, so rhythm game. Some of them are pretty obvious with very visible judgments. DJ Max is a rhythm game, Friday Night Funkin' is a rhythm game, Archaea is a rhythm game. Project Diva is one of the few rhythm games with a specific judgment for incorrect button presses that are timed properly, simply called wrong. ITG and Stepmania are based on DDR, so those are rhythm games. Taiko's a rhythm game, Muse Dash is a rhythm game. There are a few in here that are a little tougher to work out. A Dance of Fire and Ice is a rhythm game with a very punishing miss mechanic, but also features early and late judgments, so I think it's a rhythm game. Dance Central and Just Dance are rhythm games, I think. I haven't played them in ages. They feature differentiating judgments for performing moves, but I'm having a hard time figuring out if you're judged for timing or move replication accuracy. But you could also argue that if you're replicating a move correctly, it's also on time. I'm gonna tentatively put this in the rhythm game bucket for now, but I think there's an argument to be had for music game here. A couple more well-known ones for cleanup. Gitaru Man is a rhythm game, Osu is a rhythm game, Figros is a rhythm game, and Rhythm Heaven is, of course, a rhythm game. Though that one is a little unique in that it doesn't really have judgments, but the animations give a visual indicator of early or late, so I'm counting that as a judgment. Lastly, there's a certain guitar-based game that I haven't mentioned yet. Obviously very well known online, very popular, some might even say the definitive guitar game. That's right, Guitar Praise! Yeah, Guitar Praise is a rhythm game. I am not making this up, Guitar Praise has judgments. The Christian Guitar Hero ripoff has judgments. Now then, let's move on to music games. By our definition, Guitar Hero is a music game and Guitar Praise is a rhythm game. God is Dead. Actually, the whole of the Hero franchise would fall under music game by our definition. None of the games feature judgments of any kind. The Rock Band games are the same way. No judgments for accuracy, just hit or miss. Some less obvious games in the music game category would be something like Audio Surf, which takes music as an input and gives the player a roller coaster-like track to hit notes that are placed according to the song. Even if the notes were accurately placed, the game only issues a hit or miss, no accuracy, since you're just colliding with the notes and not timing anything. Beat Hazard is another music game that uses player input music generation, though in this context it's for a twin-stick shooter bullet hell type of game. Pretty neat idea, I just think it's sorta hard to determine what parts of Beat Hazard and Audio Surf actually go to the song. Harmonix's amplitude and frequency also fall under music game, having no judgments at all, just a percentage for how many notes hit, with the game favoring a heavier emphasis on score. Audition Online is also a music game, if any of you remember this game. There's a sort of judgment for each phrase of inputs, but it isn't synced up to music in any way, more so emphasizing speed over timing or accuracy. And I promise, we will talk about Audition someday. So that brings us to the last game then, and the one from the beginning of the video, Beat Saber. Beat Saber is, by our definition, a music game. The reason being that while Beat Saber does issue judgments for notes hit, in the form of a score range from 1 to 115 points, it is not based on timing in any way. It is entirely based on your swing angle. The game is obviously synced up to the music, but you are not judged on timing or rhythm in any way. So, music game. Now then, instead of saying everyone on Twitter was right, Beat Saber is a music game, not a rhythm game, I win, or something like that, I'd like to offer an alternative suggestion. I think an important factor in determining the difference between a music game and a rhythm game is intentionality. What I mean by that is, did the developers intend for you to be playing the game to the rhythm of the song? While I can understand arguments made by people claiming games like Guitar Hero and Beat Saber falling outside of rhythm games, especially with things like Beat Saber's angle scoring and techniques like Clone Hero's low precision spam techniques, I'll go ahead and be the one to say I think it's pretty disingenuous to say that Guitar Hero and Beat Saber aren't rhythm games. Just for the simple fact that you are intended to play the games by keeping a rhythm. You can make the argument that spamming in Clone Hero takes no rhythm, and well, you'd be right, but it's easy to see that the games were designed with playing to the rhythm in mind. There will definitely be exceptions and certain players who will push the boundaries of a game's mechanics for scoring purposes, but to the general audience of games like Guitar Hero and Beat Saber, they are expected to keep the rhythm to be able to play the game properly, since it is most intuitive to play the game that way. Calling something like Beat Saber not a real rhythm game just because of the scoring system is pretty needlessly exclusionary. Plenty of people out there are pushing the game to the limit while keeping time with the music, even if the game doesn't judge them for it. I'd actually argue probably most of them are. Just because Beat Saber and Guitar Hero don't specifically judge the player for keeping rhythm, those two in particular probably still deserve the rhythm game moniker. So congrats Guitar Hero, you're finally up there with your big brother guitar praise. So what's the point here? Well, the point is obviously that none of this matters at all. It's just fun to separate games into buckets and to speculate. It's also obvious that a good majority of music games are rhythm games, and I actually think it's pretty interesting to see which music games don't fall under the rhythm game umbrella. So no matter what rhythm game you play, whether it's Osu or Beat Saber or Guitar Praise, everyone has their preferences, and there's really no reason to exclude someone from the community over a funny Twitter poll. Thanks for watching. Check out my Twitter and my Twitch, links are in the description below. You can also check out my Patreon if you want to support my content. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.